Thank you for keeping it. KBC Channel 1, you're watching Good Morning Kenya. My name is Mike Migwe. And now the first conversation of Health Tuesday. We're talking about teen pregnancies and trauma, given that according to the World Health Organization, over 21 million teenagers aged between 15 and 19 years of age do get pregnant, and out of that, 12 million give birth, and this is mostly experienced in low and medium income countries, and that forms the premise of our conversation, given that for many, pregnancy is supposed to be a time of emotional well-being. But then again, when it comes to teenagers, it's a whole different stories, because we are talking about a person who may have been actually, they are not ready to get pregnant, and this alters not only their physical attributes or aspects, but also affects their mental well-being, which is why we are talking about that topic today. Dr. Deidre Wade is a professional clinical counselor and supervisor from Kentucky, United States of America. Welcome to the program.
Thank you so much.
And also Dr. Yolanda Crouch, who is a professional counseling psychologist, also from the United States. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
How
Thank
are
you so much. All is well.
Now, we are talking about teen pregnancies and trauma. And I just want to first get the psychology of it. And let me start with you, Dr. Yolanda. Talk to us about the nexus between teen pregnancies and trauma.
Well, they sort of intersect, okay? Because first of all, when you're talking about teen pregnancy, most individuals, teens, should I say, that become pregnant, they have already experienced trauma, okay? Whether it was in the household, whether it was with a caregiver, and so the trauma's already there. And so now that the trauma is there, then most of the time, the self-esteem is lowered, their sense of safety is not there. So they're always seeking someone to make them feel safe. And that's how most of them end up in relationships. Well, they think that the person loves them, but then after they become pregnant, and then things change.
And that is mostly what happens, because they're not well prepared mentally to handle these effects. And there's also a sense of, you've talked about a sense of safety. And Dr. Wade, you know, these things happen, some of them are not planned, and some of them happen out of abuse. Right. Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that is one of the things that may lead to trauma, because it's something that they may have not been expecting.
Absolutely. Yes, as Dr. Crouch was saying, they're experiencing trauma, maybe trauma in the home, maybe trauma from a family member's home, a friend's home, whatever it may be, they're experiencing that trauma, and then add on to the unexpected pregnancy that they're dealing with, and then all of the things that go with that.
Yes. Why is it important that we have to talk about teen pregnancies and its connection to trauma?
We have to keep the communication open. I mean, first of all, we need to talk about trauma. We need to know what trauma is, to know that many have experienced it, and then especially, as Dr. Crouch was saying, a lot of these young ladies have experienced trauma, and then now they're in situations. So I would encourage parents to talk with their daughters about this situation, talk about this with their sons as well, because this needs to be an open communication between parents and children, to know that they're safe, and then also about the risk of pregnancies as well.
What are some of the mental illnesses are we looking at when it comes to traumas that are associated with teen pregnancies, Dr. Yolanda?
Well, mental illnesses could be anything from anxiety to borderline personalities. There's so many that comes from teen pregnancy. But I think what I really want most individuals to know, teen pregnancies, most of the individuals are seeking, they're looking for something. And when you're looking for that sense, once again, that sense of safety, you have a tendency to reach out to whomever says they love you or they care about you. And the more support we give teens, whether it's a mentor or whether it's community support, programs that deal with youth, the more support that teens are able to get, whether it's girls or boys, young men, because the more support we give them, we're teaching them, one, to love themselves. If you don't love yourself, then you will sometimes fall through that particular crack.
There's also the aspect of post-traumatic disorder from this.
PTSD.
Is it also associated with the teen pregnancies?
Well, it's associated with teen pregnancies because it intersects with trauma. And as long as you have a teen that may be angry about a situation, a teen that may be experiencing some ADHD situations, okay? That's where the PTSD come in, because it's reoccurring thoughts of why I don't feel well, why I'm not this and why I'm not that, or my mom said you're this and this and this.
And also brings about the aspect of suicidal ideation amongst the teens.
Because if you're not feeling good about yourself, or someone has told you that you're not good enough, and that you're continuing to hear this in your head, then you don't feel good enough about yourself. So now, why am I existing? Why am I here?
Questions abound, and we shall talk about the kind of support that is supposed to be accorded to these teens. But Dr. Wade, let's talk about the postpartum depression amongst the teens.
Yes.
What is it, and what are the signs to look out for?
So it is important to recognize when anyone, I don't care what age they are, if they have a baby, they give birth, it's quite normal to experience what we call the baby blues. Maybe, oh, you know, I'm a little sad, little down in the dumps type of feeling. But then if weeks progress and you're not bonding with the baby, you know, there's major signs of depression that are setting in. It can get really scary. Maybe there's high anxiety associated with that. Oh no, you know, what's going to happen to the baby? I'm so scared, and just being on edge all the time. That could be part of postpartum depression too. It's not just the crying and depression. It can be that, you know, that just on edge type of feeling, so anxious. So
what about the relationship between the mother and the child? Is that one of the things to look out for? And
yes.
What are the traits that any person can look out for, especially when it comes to the relations between the mother and the baby, especially now we are talking about the teens?
Yes, absolutely. Teenagers, I mean, they're still trying to find their way in the world anyway, so they don't know exactly what to do as a baby. When I had my babies, I was older, but I didn't know what I was doing. So they're already young. They don't know what they're doing necessarily. That's okay. People can come along and they can help. But if the teenager is, oh, I don't want to mess with the baby, you know, just not having that bond. So it is important to recognize how the mother is interacting with the baby, making sure the baby's safe, of course, and the teenager's safe.
Yeah.
And
Dr. Yolanda, are all our teens who have fallen pregnant or have given birth, are they susceptible to trauma, things like depression, postpartum depression? Is it all, or is just most of them?
I would say most, even before they become pregnant, and then afterwards, it's definitely ongoing for most. Because when you are thrown, it's a trauma, unexpected event. Because most of them, you know, when they engage, they're not thinking about having babies. So once they find out, it's unexpected, what do I do? So when you're at the what do I do stage, then it's like, where do I go? How do I handle this situation? And that's where a lot of the trauma comes in. Now, because they're angry, because most of the time the mate leaves in most cases, so now you're left to figure out how to handle this situation, how to maneuver life And what does this look like for me at 12? I worked with teen moms for a long time, and most of them, we end up taking the children because they couldn't handle it. They would leave the children at home alone, leave them with a caregiver for weeks at a time. It was just unbelievable.
And there's also the aspect of having an open talk about sex to teenagers. When should it start?
Well, I would say just being, when you're open, welcoming, being able to talk freely about, okay, this is, I would start talking about the body and the formation of what it looks like if you're talking about birth. Then you want to deal with the mental health behind what this look like. This is going to be depressing. Your body is changing. You're going to be angry sometimes. Talk about all of those factors. So if you could, maybe start with, once again, the physical aspect, and then start talking about the mental. What this looks like. How do I break this down? Especially with teens, because as Dr. Wade said, their minds have not really fully formed. So they don't understand the ramifications of what it looks like to even have a baby. So if you start with what it looks like to have a baby and all the changes that go with it, in most cases they'll be like, no, I don't want that.
And even sometimes, Dr. Wade, parents may find it a little bit hard to start these conversations. And so why should it be important for them to open up early enough to avoid these cases?
Because of, communication and education is key for any topic that we're talking about, really, when it comes to mental health. So I know that there's an embarrassment factor about that. A lot of parents are like, oh, I don't want to talk about that, out of sight, out of mind type of mentality. That doesn't work, especially when kids start getting in relationships and hormones are involved in feelings, as Dr. Crouch was talking about. It can get really difficult to say no, but that's when the parent early on, as she was saying, needs to talk about the body. These are the parts of the body. This is how we treat our bodies, and that self-love is really important too.
Yeah, you know, we are talking about this conversation and also lack of it now. And say this teen now gets pregnant. There's a sense of fear. Does now that make things harder for the parent or for the parent and the teenager to handle this pregnancy?
Yes.
And does it lead to cases of withdrawal and, like we are saying, depression and PTSD?
Absolutely.
Cases?
I think of a family that's well established, going to their church, you know, well established in the community. This happens and there's that element of shame and guilt, and then the fear of what others will say, fear, you know, what they'll not only think of their child but think of them as parents. So there is that fear too. And then the fear of the financial fear, the fear of giving birth, all of those fears.
Yes. Dr. Yolanda, can we say the level of exposure for parents when it comes to these issues matter in terms of addressing teen pregnancies and the trauma that we are talking about? The level of exposure, I guess, I don't want to say the level of education.
No, but when you say that, I understand. But I think you also need to understand that when you're talking certain levels in life where individuals are, there may not be a parent, one. And two, does that parent actually know how to talk to that particular child? Because my mother didn't. I'm a product of a teen pregnancy. My mother did not know. So how do you give someone something that you don't have?
Yeah. So if we are talking about, so how should parents approach this, Dr. Wade? How should they approach this aspect now that, let's say, I have a daughter, she gets pregnant. The first thing maybe I'll do is lash out. What's the best approach?
that might be the natural inclination to lash out, but to think about where is that, how is that serving the situation? Maybe that parent needs to talk to another trusted adult friend, or maybe the parents need to communicate together, but the lashing out is not going to do any benefit to the teen girl who has gotten pregnant. I mean, that's a given. So to think about processing one's own feelings, and the teen girl needs to be able to have a place to process her feelings. It may not be with her parents. It may be, like she was saying, a mentor, someone at their church, like whomever it may be. They all need to be able to process the feelings appropriately, because there's a lot of strong feelings around.
I want to get your perspectives both. Have you worked with teen mothers, and what has been the experience? Let me start with you.
Yes, I've worked with teen moms long term. The experience was, most of them were very angry, had long history of domestic violence in the home, sexual abuse, which was compounded with the partner that they chose. And so it continued to perpetuate a lot of the things that they've seen in their home. So they were angry. When I say angry, I mean aggressively angry, fighting, aggressively, whether it was with someone within the home or whether it was with staff. It was really chaotic.
Dr. Wade.
So in my experience, I've had some girls who have been really successful. Their parents, maybe they have said, okay, this has happened, we will make sure to take care of the baby, and then we need you to pursue your education. A lot of girls that I've worked with have not done that. So that would be the other thing I would want to push parents to be able to do, to support the individual, support the teen girl in any way, so that she doesn't feel stuck either, that she still has opportunities in some capacity, that she doesn't have to just feel like this is my entire life and I have no goals whatsoever. It's going to be difficult for sure, but she can still dream, and have that education piece is important.
It also speaks about the perception of one about themselves. There are those who feel like they have failed in life. This has happened. It has happened. You have gotten pregnant, you have given birth, and you're still a teenager. Why is it important to ensure that these people have a positive mindset even as they continue with life?
Because your outcome later in life comes from where you are now. And what I mean by that, support. If you have someone that's positive in your life, they will continue to push you and say that you can make it. On those days when you have to get up and have to feed the baby and get the baby out to whether it's a daycare and you need to go to work, support. Support is most prominent with a teen mom. Without support, the team, that particular team is not going to make it.
And we're talking matters to do with mental support and material support.
It has to be all around. Mental, definitely first, and then physical. Because if that particular teen needs a break from that child, the teen should be able to call and say, hey, could you babysit? Come take care of the baby. Can I bring the baby for maybe 3 or 4 hours? So that particular teen can get some mental well-being.
Dr. Wade, is there the role of healthcare providers and physicians in making sure that these people get the right support?
Yes.
How and to what extent do they come in?
Oh, that's a great question. It's a broad question, because the support could be making sure, who do you talk to when you're having a rough day? Who do you call, when you need a break from the baby? Can you get a break from the baby? Because everyone needs a break from the baby. That sounds non-motherly, but it's true. We all need that break. So making sure that the teen is getting, like she was saying, the mental support that she needs. She's getting the physical support. If she doesn't have enough food to eat or stable housing, that's going to be a problem, not only for her, but for the baby. So healthcare providers need to see all of the potential signs, including postpartum depression, because as I mentioned, that can be very scary for both.
Yes. And importance of even, because there are those who may not have access to prenatal health care.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Is there a way that society can work to make sure that this cycle of trauma, because you're talking about stigmatization, judgment is one of the things that people deal with, even when it comes to teen pregnancies. How can society work to ensure these things do not really come out and affect the person negatively, or how can it be dealt with?
Educate, training, support, ongoing communication. They're vital. And what I mean by educate, training programs, whether it's in schools, churches, government programs, if we can train, first of all, if we can train teens about their self-perception, how they look at themselves, and learn how to say, it's okay to say no. That is very important, because most young girls are afraid to say no. So if we can educate them on, train, this is okay. It's okay for you to love your body. It's okay for you to say no. Training, educate, communication, support, that's vital.
Yes. I'll throw the same question to you.
Okay, yeah, and I was just sitting here thinking, a lot of the girls that I've worked with, they, you know, like I said, they maybe had big plans, and then the boyfriend moves into the home, and then there's another pregnancy. So, you know, saying no is very important, and just because you've had a baby doesn't mean that you have to continue with the cycle, you know, and maybe have more babies and things like that. It's, okay, this happened, this roll with the punches, as we say, just, you know, being able to be resilient and move through this, and that doesn't mean that you have to continue that cycle.
Yeah. You know, sometimes the society views the girl as the sole person responsible for that, but also there's the aspect of the boy who is responsible for the pregnancy. Is the society harsh on the girl more, and is that one of the reasons that leads to effects of the negative effects of teen pregnancies?
I would say the easy answer is yes, because the girl is the one, you know, she's showing the pregnancy, she's the one delivering, she's typically the one that the baby lives with too, and she's solely responsible for. So, you know, the boy can live his life, finish university, things like that. And then there are some, you know, well-meaning men out there that will do the right thing, but I would say yes.
But if you're talking about matters to do with counseling, shouldn't it involve both?
Yes.
If, for instance, I have my son, you have your daughter, they have gotten pregnant, you're taking that responsibility of taking your child to counseling. Shouldn't we do that as a team and take the child to counseling?
Yes, we should, but in most cases, when you're talking about teens, the young man does not want that.
But between the man and the parent, who has more say in these matters? If you are going to do counseling, because there's a responsibility that is coming, that is there, and these two will need guidance.
But I think it depends on the area you live in, the states, because some states say parents don't have that say-so, especially in America. So you can't have that involvement. And so with that being said, it's normally up to the teen to bring the parents in. So the parent is not bringing the teen in. And if the young man says he does not want to be involved, that's it in America.
So there's a sense, in a way, culture also plays a role in it.
It does, yes.
And how can we cultivate now positive culture to ensure that we're talking about mitigating these things and dealing with them as they come? What is the place of culture in all this?
Well, from my experience in Kenya, the church is a powerful tool, for lack of a better word, to be able to promote these things. I know some churches are very hush-hush about sexual issues. It's not meant to be, talked about in a church setting, but I believe it is important to talk about that. Maybe in groups of young women to be able to talk about these things and to encourage parents to talk about that, because, here again, education is key with that, and just knowing how to say no. It shouldn't be separate from their spiritual self, for example.
Yeah. Dr. Yolanda, can this trauma we are talking about, the nexus between teen pregnancy and trauma, lead to generational trauma?
Yes, because it continues to perpetuate.
How do we break that?
Training, education. Because if we don't talk about a situation, how do we change it?
So there's a need to create a safe space.
Safe space.
That people or even teenagers can talk freely about these things.
Yes.
Interesting. And, we're talking about this, and why should access to mental health, should it be something that is fully adopted in school curriculum?
Yes.
To help them deal with not only with these traumas we are talking about, mental trauma resulting from pregnancies. Why is it important to include that in curriculums?
It's very important to think about, even the idea of washing hands. That's physical health. Just talking about, being able to teach those types of things. It should be as common as that. How is your mental health? Because I think a lot of people think of mental health as something that's failing. To anytime that's brought up, oh, they're crazy, or they're this or they're that. But we all have mental health every day, all day.
And as we come to a close, does this affect the education future of the children, of the people now that bear these children during teenage? Does it in any way mean that this is going to be a cycle henceforth?
It will not be a cycle if we are able to address it. Communication. For instance, the teen mom, in most cases, if she decides to keep her child, as the child ages, then she needs to address, okay, this is what happened, and I want to keep you from going in the same direction. That's where the communication, the training, addressing the situation. If we have the ongoing open communication, it will not continue to perpetuate. But if we continue to close the door with closed minds, it will perpetuate.
Dr. Weed, what is the place of law in all this? Teen pregnancies, trauma that is associated with it. And some of them do get these pregnancies, as we said, out of abuse.
Yes.
What is the place of law in all this?
Oh, I think the law should be very firm, for people who abuse young girls, and this results. That's my professional opinion, if that's what you're asking about.
Yeah, and stronger laws for that matter.
Yes.
Oh, nice. I want you to give each a minute to give your closing remarks, and I'll start with you, Dr. Yolanda.
I think on the whole, as far as teen pregnancy and trauma, they intersect, and so most of the time the trauma comes first, whether it's in the household, however the teen encounters it. And afterwards, the trauma is sitting there in the mind, and the child the individual begins to act out in other ways. And once that happens, then other things occur, for instance, the pregnancy. If we can communicate to young adults, we're concerned about you, we love you, we are open and we're here for you when you need us, being able to have that open door I think it will address many of the issues that they're having, feeling not loved as far as suicide and the PTSD.
Dr. Wade.
So addiction is near and dear to my heart. So I have to tie into addiction to this topic. So 1 in every 6 Kenyans is taking some sort of substance. So that includes the teen girls. So that I would say that they are probably more likely to abuse alcohol, which is the top substance abused in Kenya. So that would be something to talk with the teens about as well. I mean, just to make sure that they know how to cope. You know, what are your healthy coping skills? Talking with other people and having those healthy coping skills.
Yes, that was the time. Thank you so much for gracing our screens once again, Dr.
Thank you.
and Dr. Yolanda, telling me to talk about teen pregnancy and trauma. And one of the things that has come out is education, training, and communication. This is where we wrap this conversation. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Mike Migu. Don't go too far. Health Tuesday continues shortly with Vivian Ndegwa. Good morning.